Hello, and thanks for joining me. It occurs to me that since I started recording videos on this channel, I've looked at lots of New Zealand wines, but I haven't yet looked at the Sauvignon Blanc, and that seems a fairly serious omission, so I thought I'd make good on that oversight. So here I have a little half bottle of Greywacke's 2021 Wild Sauvignon. So this is a Sauvignon Blanc from Marlborough. So Greywacke are a family-run business concentrating on making high-quality wines from the terroirs of Marlborough. Marlborough, for anybody unfamiliar with the region, is at the northeast corner of New Zealand's South Island. And over the last 3 or 4 decades, the region has made its reputation mostly on the back of the wonderful, fresh, zingy, aromatic Sauvignon Blancs that it makes. Now, the Greywacke wine label was founded in 2009 by somebody called Kevin Judd. And Kevin was really quite a significant figure in the establishment of Marlborough as a region. He did 25 vintages as the first winemaker at an estate called Cloudy Bay. And Cloudy Bay Sauvignon Blanc is probably New Zealand's best known wine. Certainly, it's the most searched for New Zealand wine on the Wine Searcher website. Kevin Judd is also well known and well respected for his parallel career as a photographer, portraying some wonderful views of New Zealand's vineyards. Now, the grapes for Greywacke's wines are sourced from vineyards throughout the Marlborough region, but in particular they take fruit from Sutherland family's vineyards. And these wines are made at the Dog Point Winery, which is owned by Ivan Sutherland. And Ivan and Kevin first knew each other when they were working together at Cloudy Bay. Ivan Sutherland having been the viticulturist for Cloudy Bay, working alongside Kevin Judd for a period of 18 years. So both of these men can be seen to have been highly influential in the development of Marlborough as a quality wine producing region. Fruit for this wine was sourced from various sub-regions within Marlborough, some of it coming from the southern valleys and others coming from the central Wairau plains, in particular Woodbourne, Renwick and Rapaura. Now the soil types vary from region to region. So you have the young, free-draining alluvial soils of Rapaura and Renwick, which contain a high proportion of Greywacke stones that have been carried and deposited by the rivers. And then you have the older, denser clay loams of the southern valley that will hold on to water better and tend to give a richer style to the fruit. They note that a high percentage of the vineyards were trained using a system called Scott Henry, which involves splitting the canopy so there isn't a single hedge. It's actually divided into two, with one portion at the top and another growing downwards at the bottom, to ensure there's better sunlight exposure and less shading, with the remainder of the vineyards being on a more standard 3-cane vertically shoot positioned trellising. So in other words, simply as a single upright hedge. The method of harvest varied from vineyard to vineyard. Some were picked in the cool, sometimes cold, conditions of the night to try and retain as much freshness and delicate aromatics in the wine as possible, and other vineyards were picked during the day by hand. The grapes were lightly pressed, not trying to extract all the juice possible from them. They were just looking to get a low volume of high quality juice. The juice was cold settled in tank prior to being racked off into French oak barriques. So these are 225 litre barrels. Most of those were seasoned barrels, with just a small proportion being new each year. In those barrels, the juice was allowed to undergo a spontaneous fermentation that was instigated by the indigenous yeasts that had found their way into the winery on the fruit, or that might already have been present in the winery, conducting other fermentations. And these indigenous fermentations were allowed to proceed at their own pace. So they note that some of these barrels may have taken up to 6 months to ferment totally to dry. The wine underwent occasional lees stirring just to keep the dead yeast cells in contact with the wine as it aged, and approximately 2/3 of the wine underwent malolactic conversion just to soften it, to give a little more richness and roundness. However, the remaining third of the wine was allowed to retain its crisp malic acid. And the wine was transferred out of oak just prior to the next harvest. The barrels would have been combined and everything was put into tank, still with its lees, aged for a further 6 months. This particular wine was bottled in September 2022. When I purchased it, I wondered if it was a wise buy to buy a 2021 Sauvignon Blanc in a half bottle. However, I've seen suggestions that this wine should have a drinking window going out to 2031. So that gives me a bit more confidence that this should still be in good condition. So let's take a look at it. Now, the first thing to say is that the colour is a pale yellowish colour, perhaps hints of green. Swirling it, the wine, according to its label, has 14% alcohol, so it's no slouch. But it seems reticent to form tears on the glass there as I'm swirling it. So let's see what we make of the aroma, shall we? Gosh, there's a real pungency there. It's making me think initially of cooked green asparagus. But there are just slight hints of a sort of a gunpowder note that's quite typical of wines that have undergone indigenous fermentation. I guess there are a few restrained high-tone notes of gooseberry and cut grass. But perhaps one of the notable things about the aromas of this is that those sharper, greener notes, and also sort of any richer, more tropical notes, perhaps passion fruit or something, are really quite restrained on this. The influence of the oak has toned them down, and it goes some way towards making this slightly atypical as a Marlborough Sauvignon Blanc. So let's have a taste. The wine is dry, and there really is a crisp, sharp acidity. That remaining malic acid really does give a crisp green apple twang to the front of the palate. However, there is a richness and a roundness to the palate, which is medium to full-bodied. And perhaps that's supported by that 14% alcohol, just to give a bit more roundness at the back there. And there are rich notes, almost like the sort of ripe gooseberries. I guess almost like the sort of the pectin quality you get from gooseberries. There aren't obvious toasty oak notes, but overlaying everything there is this sort of minerally gunpowder sort of note that seems to talk of the spontaneous fermentation that's gone on here. The flavours and the aromas seem to be more at the greener end of the spectrum. There's perhaps a little nettly note, slight hints of blackcurrant leaf and passion fruit, but there really isn't the sort of vibrant tropical kiwi fruit and mango sort of notes that you can get from some Marlborough Sauvignon Blancs. There really is an excellent length of flavour, and to the finish the wine displays notes of apple, notes of asparagus and notes of gooseberry that are given some extra focus and length thanks to that lovely crisp tart acidity that sits alongside it. Actually, the acidity is really well integrated. It doesn't stand out, but it's providing a mouthwatering nature that's giving some excellent length to the finish. Now, I took a look at the Wine Searcher aggregated critics score for this vintage of this wine. In 2021 scores 93 out of 100. I completely agree with that as a score, and I think the wine shows that Marlborough has the ability not just to produce rich, exciting tropical fruit flavours, but also wines with great complexity and depth. A wine that's beautifully mature now, but isn't seeming tired at all. And I would be quite happy to drink this wine over the next 5 years or so, because I have every confidence in its ability to continue delivering these wonderful flavours and aromas. So thank you so much for joining me. I do hope you've enjoyed the tasting. If you have enjoyed it, do please press the like button. That would be greatly appreciated. It would really help the channel to grow. If you'd like to watch more of these videos, I would really appreciate it if you'd sign up and subscribe to the channel. That way also do set yourself an alert so you can be notified every time I publish a new tasting so you don't miss anything. If you have any friends you think might like to watch the video, do feel free to pass it on to them. I would really appreciate your support in that way. If you have any comments, please pop those in the comments box below. I'd love to know what you think about Greywacke, about Marlborough Sauvignon Blanc, about New Zealand wines, or anything else related to these tastings I do. So thank you once again for joining me, and I do hope that sometime in the near future you'll manage to make some time, come and join me and watch another video tasting. So until then, bye for now.